Imagine for a moment that you're living in a world where speaking your mind about religion can get you killed. A world where the church has so much power that it can dictate what you read, what you believe, and even what you think. This was the world of William Tyndale, a man who dared to challenge the authority of the church and the crown. His story is both shocking and inspiring, a tale of courage and conviction in the face of overwhelming odds. William Tyndale was a scholar and a priest who lived in the early 16th century. He was born in the small town of Gloucestershire, England, around 1494. From a young age, he showed a keen interest in languages and theology. Tyndale was particularly fascinated by the Bible, the holy book of Christianity. However, the Bible was not easily accessible to the common people. It was written in Latin, a language known only to the educated elite and the clergy. The church, particularly the powerful Catholic Church, kept the Bible a closely guarded secret. They believed that only the clergy should interpret the scriptures, and they feared what might happen if ordinary people could read and understand the Bible for themselves. Tyndale, however, had a different vision. He believed that everyone, regardless of their social status or education, should have the right to read and understand the Bible. He saw the church's control over the scriptures as a way to keep people ignorant and oppressed. Tyndale's dream was to translate the Bible into English, the language of the common people, so that everyone could have access to God's Word. But this was a dangerous idea. The church saw Tyndale's translation as a threat to their authority. They feared that if people could read the Bible for themselves, they might start questioning the church's teachings and practices. The church had a lot to lose if the people became too knowledgeable. They could start demanding reforms, challenging the corruption and abuses within the church, and even questioning the very power of the clergy. Despite the dangers, Tyndale was determined to see his vision through. He began working on his translation, using the original Greek and Hebrew texts as his sources. He wanted to ensure that his translation was as accurate as possible, preserving the true meaning and spirit of the scriptures. But as he worked, he realized that he would need to publish his translation to make it available to the people. This was easier said than done. The church had a tight grip on the printing presses, and they were not about to allow a heretical translation of the Bible to be printed. Tyndale knew he would have to leave England to find a printer who would dare to publish his work. He traveled to the continent, crossing the channel to the city of Cologne, Germany. Cologne was a hub of printing and intellectual activity, and Tyndale hoped to find a sympathetic printer there. He was in luck. He found a publisher who agreed to print his translation. The text was set, and the printing process was underway. But the church had eyes and ears everywhere. A local church official, a dean, heard about Tyndale's project and realized the danger it posed. He quickly informed the authorities, and the printing press was raided. The type was destroyed, and Tyndale had to flee for his life. Tyndale's journey was far from over. He continued to travel, always one step ahead of the authorities. He eventually found refuge in the city of Worms, in modern-day Germany, where a printer named Peter Schurfer agreed to publish his translation. In 1525, the first edition of Tyndale's English New Testament was printed. 6,000 copies were produced and smuggled into England, but Tyndale's troubles were far from over. The church and the government were determined to stop the spread of his translation. King Henry VIII of England, who was a staunch Catholic at the time, declared Tyndale a criminal and ordered his arrest. Sentries were posted at all the ports, and a manhunt was launched to capture him. For the next 4 years, Tyndale lived a life on the run. He moved from place to place, always staying one step ahead of his pursuers. He continued to work on his translation, revising and improving it. He also wrote pamphlets and books, defending his work and challenging the authority of the church. But the authorities never gave up. They were determined to silence him. In 1535, Tyndale was betrayed by a man named Henry Phillips, who had posed as a friend. Phillips lured Tyndale to Antwerp, where he was arrested by the authorities. He was imprisoned in the castle of Vilvoorde near Brussels for 16 months. During his imprisonment, he was tried for heresy and found guilty. On October 6, 1536, William Tyndale was executed. He was first strangled and then burned at the stake, his body a warning to others who might dare to challenge the church. Tyndale's death was a tragedy, but his legacy lived on. His translation of the Bible was so well received that it became the basis for the King James Version, the most famous and widely used English translation of the Bible. Despite the Church's efforts to suppress it, copies of Tyndale's translation continue to circulate. People risked their lives to read and share his work. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer, and other reformers recognized the value of Tyndale's translation and supported its use. In 1539, the first official English Bible, the Great Bible, was published, based largely on Tyndale's work. Tyndale's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of freedom of thought and expression. He believed that knowledge and truth should be accessible to everyone, not just the elite. He was willing to risk everything, even his life, to make that vision a reality. His courage and conviction inspired others to follow in his footsteps, challenging the authority of the Church and advocating for religious reform. The Reformation, a movement that reshaped the religious and political landscape of Europe, owes much to men like William Tyndale, but Tyndale's story is also a cautionary tale. It shows the dangers of a world where power is concentrated in the hands of a few, and where dissent is met with violence and suppression. It is a reminder that the fight for freedom and justice is never easy, and that those who challenge the status quo often pay a high price. Yet it is also a story of hope. Despite the obstacles and the sacrifices, the truth can prevail. The words of the Bible, once the exclusive domain of the Church, are now available to all. The legacy of William Tyndale lives on, a testament to the power of one person's courage to change the world.